President of the European Research Council, Mr. Minister, Mr. President of the Romanian ERC, Mr. President of the National Authority of Research, Mr. Director of our Authority of Research, Mr. President of the Education Committee from Chamber of Deputy, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleague rectors, deans, Director of Institute of Research, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to welcome you to the National University of Science and Technology, Politehnica, Bucharest, for this important dialogue of the future of frontier research. Your presence here, Madam President, is a powerful endorsement of the potential of the Romanian scientific community. It signals a shared conviction that European scientific excellence must be cultivated across the entire Union. For decades, the European Research Council has stood out the global gold standard of high risk and high gain fundamental science. The ERC operates on a profound principle that true innovation cannot be micromanaged. It begins with the absolute freedom of exceptional mind to explore the unknown. Today, however, our challenge is to connect this freedom with Europe's pressing geopolitical realities and objectives. We must look closely at the critical pipeline and ecosystem running from frontiers research and technology implementation. Europe is currently navigating a profound structural transformation as we push for strategic autonomy through initiatives like EU Chips Act and AI Act. We must recognize that technological sovereignty cannot be bought off shelf. It must discover it in our laboratories. Every disruptive technology reshaping our market today has a fundamental abstract questions. Generative and agentic AI grow out of a decade of pure mathematical and algorithmic research. The semiconductor revolution, a living dire of advanced quantum mechanics as material science. The green transition depend on fundamental breakthrough on electrochemistry and hydrogen dynamics. The strategic chain is clear. The ERC generate new knowledge, university translate that knowledge into advanced capabilities, and Europe secure this global competitive edge. If we underfund this first link of this chain, the entire architecture of European innovation stop functioning and as expected. At Politehnica Bucharest, we have moved past the theoretical debate. We are actively building the physical and human infrastructure required to support this innovative pipeline. Advanced computing, we are developing ROAI Factory, the first national supercomputing infrastructure dedicated to artificial intelligence, integrated with the European Euro HPS network. Quantum security, we are pioneer to the national quantum communication infrastructure in Romania, creating the secure state-of-the-art framework for future data transmission. Strategic Industrial Alliance, our universities actively engage in 4 important projects of common European interest, embedding our researchers directly into the European microelectronics and clean hydrogen supply chain. We are part of Nano-IC, I'm sure you know, one of the most important research projects in Europe, top level expertise in metrology and atomic scale characterization to the use of the most advanced electron microscopy technique, represent the only way for the consortium to validate the reliability of complex architecture belong to nanometer, and this is part of our research now in Politehnica. And socio-economical ecosystem, we recently finalized 4 advanced competence centers financed by our government that serve as operational bridges between fundamental research team and frontier tech enterprises. Yet, world-class infrastructure is its only multipliers. The baseline will always be the human minds. Advanced clean rooms and petascale semiconductors do not innovate. Researchers do. We must address the structural reality of the European research area openly. Currently, and I speak directly with this occasion, Mr. President, a persistent funding disparity remains, while widening countries represent a massive portion of the EU academics population. They historically secure about 5% of the total ERC grant. The statistics do not reflect the deficit of talent in Central and Eastern Europe. It reflects the historical bottleneck in local research ecosystem, infrastructure, and institutional predictability. To build a resilient Europe, the map of scientific excellence must become more geographically balanced. This gap we do not need the lowest or ERC uncompromising standards of excellence. Instead, we must create a stable, practical, and highly attractive environment with our national borders to retain our and attract top-tier global talent. We want our researcher to view an ERC grant not as an out-of-reach anomaly, but it's a natural milestone in the world-class scientific career. Achieve this requires a coordinated systemic effort. University, national funding bodies, and European institutions must align their mechanisms to ensure that a brilliant idea sparked in Bucharest had exactly same trajectory tower scaling as on spark in Paris or Munich or other European important university city. Madam President, thank you again for your presence, your leadership, and for present here, and for bringing this critical conversation here into Politehnica Bucharest. Together, let us ensure that European frontier research remain bold, inclusive, and globally make it. Again, thank you so much. In the room, it's one of the most important researchers in the country, and online, it's many other. The people, it's very engaged in this discussion. It's very important. It's very important discussion for our country. All the key person in research area, it's here. The minister, the agency, the Institute of Research, the universities, the National Council of Rectors, of course, our minister, very important. And in this day, you have many meetings also with Romanian Academy. It's also with us. The Vice President of Romanian Academy is coming in a few minutes. And tomorrow and today, you have a lot of meetings with our important leaders. And we are very happy because you accept this invitation in Politehnica. And thank you again for this occasion to talk with you and respond to the question of our leaders and researchers in this day in Bucharest. Thank you so much. To continue our program, it is my great pleasure to invite the Minister of Education and Research of Romania, Professor Mihai Dimian, to deliver his remark. Please, Mr. Minister, the floor is yours.
Distinguished representative of European Research Council, Madam President, dear colleagues and ladies and gentlemen from various areas. It is a great honor to be here to see such a large concentration of excellence. I see already clusters on each area that are formed, so hopefully at the end you'll have also some project to write. So It is also a privilege to do this in the presence of the presidents of European Research Council, Professor Maria Leptin. And European Research Council grants are recognized worldwide as a passport to excellence. And Romania aspires to be an increasingly active and competitive player in this community. Our deep appreciation for the contribution that European Research Council has made to strengthening our scientific excellence across Europe, as well as I thank you, Madam President, for your personal leadership in advancing an ambitious vision for European research at a defining moment for the future of European Union. We truly believe that ERC should continue playing a central role in frontier research across Europe. European Union should fully exploit its excellence research potential from all its members, with ERC as a main driving force. Europe is entering in a period in which the capacity to generate knowledge, technology, and innovation is becoming increasingly central to its economic security and strategic autonomy. In the global competition for knowledge and technology, Europe needs more frontier research, not less. Investing in frontier research is not only about generating new knowledge, but is also about creating the condition to attract, develop, and retain brightest minds in Europe. The ability to support talent, wherever it emerges, will be one of key determinants of European competitiveness in the decades ahead. For Romania, contributing to this effort means strengthening our research institution, fostering international collaboration, and creating environments where ambitious idea and transformative research can flourish. In recent years, Romanian researchers have proved their capacity to compete at the highest level. Today, 17 ERC projects are being implemented in Romania, including 8 starting grants, 4 consolidator grants, 2 proof of concept grants, 2 advanced grants, and a support project for national network of ERC contact points. In financial terms, 22 million euros for scientific excellence in Romania. In addition to this contribution, our national grant scheme have rewarding the winning institution and researcher with about 4 million euros. Romania has also invested in major research facilities as a catalyst of world-class research. In these respects, we should emphasize that Romania hosts the most powerful laser in the world, fully functional at this stage, and we also like to see ELI-NP better exploited also in the ERC world. Furthermore, Romania earmarked about 500 million euros to build up to 5 world-class research infrastructure. All finding contracts are already under implementation, and one example I think is relevant to frontier research is Danubius ERI. The key point is that Danube Delta is the last nature laboratory in Europe, and I think Danubius could be an excellent host of ERC project in about 2 years from now. Another indicator to improvement of our participation in ERC activities is the involvement of Romanian experts in the evaluation of ERC projects. Between 2007 and 2013, 19 Romanian researchers served on ERC panels, participating in 47 evaluation processes. Furthermore, we have organized together with European Commission and various Romanian institutions hosting ERC grants, including our host today, a series of events linked to ERC competition, information sessions, and workshop, networking meeting, and ERC grant presentation. These initiatives have strengthened the national capacity to participate in European programs and have created a community that is increasingly well prepared for global competition. Our national ambition is to become an important player in cutting-edge European research. However, several structural factors contribute to lower ERC participation and success rate in Romania, such as low national R&D expenditure relative to EU average, limited experience in highly competitive frontier research proposal writing, difficulty in attracting and retaining international competitive researchers. Romania is considerably more visible in ERC system through the diaspora than through Romanian institutions. We plan to transform this weakness in an opportunity. Romania has a large pool of ERC caliber researchers abroad who could potentially be attracted back through competitive international environment and national support scheme, as it is currently happening with more than 100 researcher funding from National Recovery and Resilience Plan investment to lead 1 million plus euros research grants in Romanian institutions. Romanian research and innovation system is undergoing a sweeping reform driven by Horizon Europe policy support facility and targeted National Recovery and Resilience Plan investment. The primary goals are to overhaul national R&D governance, boost international competitiveness, and attract global talent. But to achieve these goals, some difficult decisions are unavoidable in our national research system. And we must properly balance concentration and dispersion, excellence and equality, adaptation and protection. I hope we will be wise enough to consider the example of countries such as Ireland and Estonia, who have demonstrated that the influence of relatively small country in global knowledge economy is determined by the ability to concentrate talent and resources in a limited number of strategically chosen domains. Thank you, and I wish you every success in all your future projects. Frontier research is a field of courage to explore the unknown and to push the boundary. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. Now, I invite Professor Sorin Cîmpeanu, the President of the National Council of Rectors, and one of the personality in our educational life, Mrs. President. Please, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, distinguished President Maria Leptin, distinguished Minister Mihai Dimian, distinguished Rector and friend Mihnea Costoiu, President of Education Committee in the Romanian Parliament, President of National Authority for Scientific Research, Minister Adrian Curaj, dear friends of academic world in Romania and not only. It is a great honor to welcome you to the National University for Science and Technology Politehnica of Bucharest, the biggest technical university for the moment, the biggest technical university in Romania, for a dialogue dedicated to frontier research, scientific excellence, and the future of the European research area. The European Research Council is one of the strongest symbols of Europe's commitment to scientific excellence. By supporting frontier research on the basis of the quality of ideas and the merit of researchers, the ERC has shown that European science can be ambitious, competitive, and globally relevant. Can be one passport for excellence, as Minister Dimian said. For Romania, this meeting carries a special significance. The number of ERC grants awarded to Romanian institution is still below our potential. Still, I hope. But this reality does not reflect a lack of talent. Romanian universities and research institutes host valuable researchers, internationally recognized groups, and young generation able of competing and at the highest European level. What needs to be strengthened is the institutional framework, a framework able to transform this potential into competitive ERC application. We need professional support for proposal preparation, pre-award service, mentoring, research management, and access to relevant international networks. This is why we see university as central actors in this process. They train researchers, build interdisciplinary teams, connect ideas, and create the environment in which frontier research can become European-level performance. In Romania, we are investing increasingly in research infrastructures, doctoral schools, internationalization and interdisciplinary collaboration. In this respect, the new generation of centers of excellence can play a strategic role. The centers are creating integrated research ecosystems in areas of European importance: climate resilience, sustainable agriculture, bioeconomy, health and digitalization, and can become platforms through which Romanian researchers are better prepared for ERC competitions. Madam President, our ambition is for Romanian excellence to become more visible, better connected, and more competitive within the ERC landscape. We will welcome a more structured collaboration with the ERC and the ERC Executive Agency, information and training sessions in Romanian universities, mentoring with ERC grantees, exchange of good practice with established ERC host institutions, and support for strengthening research management capacities. Such collaboration will help excellent ideas emerging in Romania develop into stronger proposal and will give young researchers greater confidence in their ability to build scientific careers within the European research area. Europe cannot afford to lose talent from any of its regions. Romania wishes to be not only a beneficiary of European support mechanism, but an active partner in generating ideas, solutions, and discoveries for Europe's future. Today, it's one event, it's one opportunity to build trust, strengthen partnerships, and reaffirm our shared commitment to a Europe in which scientific excellence remains the foundation of progress. On behalf of the Romanian Council of Rectors, I would like to thank the European Research Council and his President Maria Leptin for opening this dialogue with the Romanian research ecosystem. Thank you once again, and I wish you an inspiring and productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now a great privilege to welcome the President of the European Research Council, Professor Maria Leptin. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Minister Dimian, Rector Costoiu, President Cîmpeanu, academicians, colleagues, friends, thank you very much for inviting me here today, me and my colleagues, and thank you to the Politehnica University for hosting us. I'm really glad to be here. It's my second time in Romania, first time exclusively private, not only because this is an important event for the ERC, but because the question we're discussing here today is the right one. How do we boost frontier research in Romania? It's not how do we distribute money more evenly, not how do we make success look more balanced on a spreadsheet. It's how do we make sure that excellent researchers, wherever they are in Europe, have the conditions they need to do their best work. And that distinction matters. The ERC was created with a simple idea. Europe needed a funding body that would support the most ambitious research in all fields, chosen by researchers themselves and selected only on the basis of scientific excellence. No thematic priorities, no geographical quotas, no political steering of scientific questions. That principle is sometimes uncomfortable, especially for politicians. It means we do not decide in advance where the grants should go, we do not correct the outcome after the evaluation, and we do not lower the bar for anyone. But it also is the reason that the ERC is trusted. It is why researchers across the world recognize an ERC grant as a mark of quality. So let me say what the ERC can do and what it is doing and what it cannot do. We fund individual researchers and their teams. We give them time, money, and freedom to pursue difficult questions. Since 2007, the ERC has supported thousands of researchers, and not only the PIs, but also their research teams, and that's really hundreds of thousands of people now. across Europe. And these projects have produced new knowledge, they've trained young scientists, generated patents, startups, and sometimes whole new research directions. But the ERC is not only a funder of projects, it's also a standard setter. It shows that competitive, international, peer-reviewed funding can look what it can look like when it is kept independent and focused on quality. For countries that are currently less successful in ERC calls, we can do several practical things. First of all, let me say that we do not see that the ERC panels are biased against applicants from Romania or anywhere else. I know the ERC very well, having been a panel member first for the advanced grants and then later for synergy grants before I became president. The ERC has carried out several academic analyses to capture possible bias based on nationality or other criteria in our evaluation system. And the result is always the same. We see no proof of bias. And the Scientific Council actually spends a lot of our time trying to ensure that the ERC's peer review evaluation can identify scientific excellence irrespective of gender, age, nationality, or institution of the PI, or any other potential biases. And I spend a lot of time in my briefing reminding panel members of that. So what do we do? We provide information, we work with national contact points, we support mentoring, we've already heard that. We can help promising applicants spend time with ERC-funded teams through the Visiting Research Fellows program. And we also work through the ambassadors of the ERC now, a new tool that has been created a couple of years ago, including our one here in Romania. And these things matter. Preparing an ERC proposal is not a bureaucratic exercise. It's an intellectual and creative exercise. It forces researchers to ask, what are the big questions? Why do they matter? Why am I the right person to answer it? And why now? So good mentoring helps, experienced peers help, and strong institutions help. And we've seen in several countries that well-designed support systems can improve performance drastically. But there are also things that the ERC cannot do. The ERC cannot substitute for a strong national research system. And I told the minister this morning what he was telling me was music in my ears, because it is evident that Romania is seeing that, unlike some other countries, that it is the national research system, the national environment that has to be strengthened in order to qualify the researchers here to do well internationally. I really welcome that. But the ERC, it's not the ERC that can make a university internationally competitive if the national rules prevent the university from hiring or rewarding or retaining excellent people. That must be done by the university or by the government if they're in charge. We cannot create stable research careers where national systems make them precarious. And that brings me to the next point, what Romania can do. Romania obviously has real assets. It has strong educational traditions, emphasized many times this morning, and I really think Romania should be proud of that. Many countries are forgetting how important it is to have a strong educational base, so I would welcome that too. Romania has institutions and fields where excellence is already visible, and has examples here today of researchers who have competed successfully at European level. But talent isn't enough. Research systems are built through steady choices. They need predictable funding, they need autonomy for universities and research institutions. They also need patience. A country cannot decide in 1 year to be excellent and expect the results to be seen in the next ERC call. This is slow work, but it's not at all mysterious. Some countries have improved because they treated ERC participation not as a lottery, but part of research policy. And that's what it has to be. They identified strong candidates early, gave them serious mentoring, funded excellent proposals, and also funded narrowly missed but highly evaluated proposals. And the third point is politically a little bit harder, but I think it's essential. It's tempting for every country to look at the EU research budget and ask, how much do we pay in and how much do we get out? I totally understand why people ask that. Public money is scarce. Public duties are vast. Governments are accountable to their citizens. But for research, I think this is the wrong way to think. Research is actually not a closed national transaction. Knowledge, as we all know, does not stop at a border, and a discovery made in any one country can be used by researchers and doctors and companies and citizens across Europe. Scientists, but also industrial suppliers, startups, and industrial users move through the single market. And Romania's own recent economic history actually shows this very clearly. Like Poland and several other countries in Central and Eastern Europe, Romania has grown, and its economic output has grown partly by being connected to a wider European economy, by attracting investment, joining supply chains, adopting technologies, etc., and giving its firms and citizens access to a much larger market. Much of the knowledge that made this possible was not produced. Some of it was produced in Romania, but much of it was produced elsewhere. And it came here through companies, universities, infrastructure, skilled people, and industrial links across Europe. So, when Europe funds excellent frontier research, the benefit is not confined to the host country. Of course, the host institution gains, and of course, the local ecosystem gains, but the knowledge enters an entire European system. It becomes part of the common stock from which others can draw. And I think we're recognizing that increasingly across Europe. So that's not an argument for Romania to accept low participation. You shouldn't. And the ambition we've been hearing here this morning is also music in my ears. So quite the opposite. Romania should want more ERC grantees, more competitive institutions, more excellent applications, and more Romanian researchers shaping European science. But it is an argument against a narrow juste retour view of research funding. If Romania supports a stronger ERC budget, it's not simply being generous to countries that currently win more grants, it's investing in the European knowledge base, of which Romania is, after all, an important part. And the stronger that European knowledge base is, the more value it becomes for Romania to be connected to it. There's a further point, and the answer to unequal EU success is not to reduce the emphasis on excellence. That wouldn't help anybody, and I'm glad I didn't hear that demand from this country. That would reduce the value of the grants, it would reduce the trust in the system, and it would reduce the quality of the science Europe needs. The answer is to widen the capacity to compete. This means European action and national action working together. The ERC can open doors, provide models, offer support, and fund excellence where panels find it. Romania can build the conditions, and I'm hearing you are building the conditions, that allow more of its researchers to walk through these doors successfully. That's the partnership we need. So, my message today is very practical. Use the ERC, challenge your institutions with it, find your best researchers and encourage them, support the researchers before they apply, and support them again if they don't succeed but come close. There are many examples of the benefits for that. Make it easier for excellent people to build ambitious groups here. Create the conditions in which young researchers believe they can do world-class work in Romania and have a perspective for the future. At the same time, support a stronger European research budget, because Romania's future does not depend only on research done within Romania. It depends on being part of a Europe that discovers more, understands more, and turns knowledge into capacity. That is what frontier research is for, not prestige for its own sake, not grants as trophies, but the freedom to ask questions whose answer may change what all of us can do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President. Tough subject and very important message also for our research and also for our authorities. We understand we have time to discuss more, and I'm sure we have time to respond also to some question in the last part of this event. I'm sure for many researchers, professors, many institutions, one ERT grants, it's a dream, and we are not very comfortable with this, but this is reality. And for us, it's we understand it's a very important work in the future for transform the dreams into reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to for the next session, and I invite Minister President to stay in the room, and I invite with us here three Romanian ERC grantees for share the insight of their experience and beyond. First, Mihaela Constantinescu, professor in the University of Bucharest, Faculty of Philosophy, and also ambassador of ERC ambassador, please, Mihaela. And two colleagues from Politehnica Bucharest, Alina Bădescu, and from Faculty of Communication, Electronic and Communication, and Costin Raiciu from Faculty of Computer Science, both from our university. Alina and Costin, please. The chair is Mihaela, please. Mihaela, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
My papers, 1 second, I'm ready.
Da, este pe Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this second session dedicated to ERC grantees. Alina is going to start discussing. We have about 30 minutes to discuss a little bit about our own research grants, but also about what can make an ERC application to be successful. We don't really have time for Q&A right now, but hopefully at the end of the event today, we're going to have some time for both the roundtable panelists and also for the people presenting beforehand. So without further ado, let me give the floor to Alina. So my name is Alina Bădescu. I'm a professor at Faculty of Electronics, and I was the first ERC winner from Politehnica University of Bucharest. I will start the presentation with a few words about my grant. That was in System and Communication Engineering, so in panel P7. It lasted for 2 years. It supported an interdisciplinary research team. Of course, I was the principal investigator, and very, very important, the grant assured all the support in order to buy the measurement equipment that I needed for my grant. Now, in case you are wondering what my grant was about, it concerned a cosmic neutrino detector, and I have tried to I have tried to summarize the essence of the grant in this figure. So we are interested in cosmic neutrinos, detection of cosmic neutrinos. And why is that? Because they are the secondary product, let's say, of some very energetic sources that I'm sure that you have heard of, which are black holes, for example. So the black holes produce those neutrinos that they have this wonderful property of traveling pretty much in a straight line through space. Now, if we are lucky enough and that neutrino is going to reach the proximity of the detector, that neutrino is going to interact, and by its interaction is going to produce a cascade of secondary particles. That cascade of secondary particles altogether
is going to produce some radio waves. The radio waves will travel in the detector, and they are going to be recorded, measured by antennas. So actually, the detector, as you see it here, it consists of boreholes in which antennas are placed. The length of a borehole is about 1 kilometer, so it's a cubic kilometer detector. Based on measurements of the amplitude and the time of the radio waves, the detector can trace not only the direction of the incoming particle, the direction of the neutrino, but also its energy and other properties of that particle. So this is why we know that in the direction of the incoming neutrino, there is a black hole. Now, the problem is not so simple because I have mentioned that the radio waves are the product of interaction of the neutrinos, and that interaction is going to lead to billions of secondary particles in the environment, and all that particles are going to form radio waves that are coherent, so they add up, and this is how you have a simulation of how the radio electric field looks like. The problem is even further complicated because, as I have mentioned, we are using antennas which are boreholed, but antennas are not going to work the same in air as they do when they are boreholed. So that should be studied separately, and this is what I did. That was one of the things that I did in my grant. And also you see here in the back a picture of a salt mine. I forgot to mention that the boreholes should be drilled in salt mines. And you see here, this is a real picture, and you see the sedimentary layers that were actually, they come from the diapir process of forming the salt mine. So you see how actually the radio waves propagate, they are reflected, there are many processes going on. So all of that has to be reconstructed because it should be excluded from the measurements, and this is how we get the actual direction of the neutrino by excluding all these effects. Now, a few words about the application process. I won this grant 10 years ago, so everything I'm saying right now is going to be related to the application process back then. I'm sure that not many things changed. But first, when you submit your application, you should upload two files, two parts. Part B1, which consists of 3 documents here. And if the evaluation is successful, if you are graded high enough, then your second part, B2, the scientific proposal, is going to be also evaluated. And you are going to be invited for an interview that will lead to the grant. Now for the part B1, it consists of an extended synopsis, which is actually a long summary of your proposal. And my advice would be to write this long summary after finishing your proposal. That's how you can synthesize best your proposal. And also a CV and an early achievement track record are uploaded in this part. Now, I have been asked many times regarding my personal track record, and I don't know actually how many articles you should have in order to be considered by the evaluation panel a successful applicant. There are no rules, I know. One in Nature, it could be enough, probably. But from the report that I got from my evaluators, they appreciated the fact that the articles were in the field of the proposal, of course, the fact that I was the sole author of several publications in high impact factor journals. Now, I was also, I also had a previous grant, an American grant, so I had experience in managing funds, but that's not a condition for applying for an ERC. Now, part B, if the first one is successful, this is actually not evaluated in step 1, and you have a lot of freedom in writing the proposal. Just some indications are given in the template, like the state-of-the-art, methodology, resources. But again, my advice, As always, the proposal should be coherent, and everything should be correlated. An evaluator is going to spend 6 to 8 hours reading the proposal, so there should be no unanswered questions, no open or not clarified aspects on the proposal. And as I mentioned, everything should be correlated in the sense that I will give you just an example. The number of the research team, the number of researchers should be correlated with the number of outputs. The previous experience of the researchers should be correlated with their tasks in the proposal and so on. So everything should add up in a coherent and correlated way. Final thing that I want to mention regarding the proposal, pay attention that the equipment is subject to amortization. This is something different from the Romanian grants. So if you are planning to apply, contact your financial team to help you with all the details regarding the equipment purchase. Now, interview, that was the last part of the application process. In 2016, I participated in Brussels at the interview. It consists of 2 parts. First, project presentation that lasted for 7 minutes. I had 4 slides to present. And after that, I had questions from 10 to 15 evaluators in the room, and the questions lasted for 40 minutes about. And of course, since I'm here, my application was successful. I will spend the last minute talking about the impact that this grant had on my career. And I have heard already twice today that an ERC is a passport. I really felt that. So at international level, you gain access to international organizations. I have been invited in boards of societies. I even had the chance to speak in the European Parliament. So it really boosted my career from that point of view. You have there my email address. I have provided help for other applicants, and I'm still willing to do that. So if you need any help with the proposal or mock interview or whatever, feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.
Okay. And now, given the closed field in which Costin and Alina work in, I kindly ask Costin to share his presentation with us.
Hi everyone, thanks to the organizers for inviting me. I didn't really know what to cover today for these 10 minutes, but I think it matches pretty well, or it complements pretty well what Alina said. So just some thoughts on ERC funding. As you can see, I studied here at in Bucharest, then I did my PhD abroad, then I came back. And before getting the ERC, which happened in the starting grant, which happened in 2018, I actually had a pretty strong track record in publishing papers in top computer networking conferences, and becoming somebody that is known in the field. And the reason I'm saying this is because a large part of the evaluation of the ERC is track record. Are you a credible researcher in that field that can actually take on this new hard problem that you've identified and solve it? If you cannot really show that you're a credible researcher in the field, even if your plan is very, very good and you have like a great new angle on a problem, you're probably not going to be successful. So before I applied, I actually tried my best to maximize my track record. And actually, there's a list of things that I listed here. It's not just one. So the ERC starting grant is called CoreNet, and it's basically trying to achieve correct networks. So the idea behind this grant was, well, when computer networks fail, bad things happen. And there were a lot of examples in 2015 and 16 where you have like a router failing and then planes are grounded in some airports and nothing flies, and you have disruptions and stranded passengers and so forth. And there were many examples like this. So what my project aimed to do was to say, can we apply formal methods to networks and make sure that networks are provably correct, right? And that's basically what the project tried and achieved to a large extent. And the outcome of the project is, some number of publications in top conferences, and it has had quite a bit of impact. But we didn't really stop there, right? So with research, it's not like you get one grant and you just stop, you just do that and then you're done. It's always a process, and at some point it became clear that we could transition this research to sort of industry and try to sort of make it real. And that's why I applied for 2 ERC proof of concept projects. This is SafeNet and EQDS pilot. And as you can see by my sort of annotated duration in parentheses, you tend to get much better at writing these proposals as you get experience, right? So my original ERC took quite a bit to write, and I had it reviewed by friends and colleagues and so forth. Whereas the POCs were comparatively much easier to write, because when it's really obvious what you want to do and it's very easy to make a case, then you can write it basically in just one go. And these are small projects, but this is one of the great benefits of so funding wise, these are like 150K versus 1.5 million for the ERC. But it's one of the benefits you get as a ERC grantee. You can apply for these things where you can get some money to see if you can take this, some part of your project towards a commercial direction, right? And this is just the early exploration. It doesn't mean, you get money to fund the company or whatever, right? It's just early, exploitation thing. And actually, I got 2 of these things, so I was quite successful in this direction. And then finally, my last proposal to the ERC was a consolidator grant application, which again I wrote fairly quickly, and I thought it was a pretty good one. I got to the interview, but it wasn't funded, so it was sort of lower than the other proposals that were funded, and yeah. So overall, in this is a very meritocratic process, right? So typically, if you have a good track record and you actually write a good research proposal, you have very good chances of getting in. I will just have a note to our ERC president and say, can you please move the interviews to be in person again and not have them remote? It's just so much better. It just does. I mean, my first interview was in person. My second one was remote. Completely different experience. It's just not good. So please, can you? Okay. Okay, so why should you apply for ERC funding? Well, it's really the best funding you can get. Not only it's prestigious, that's understood, but you actually have a lot of money, which means you can hire a fairly big team, especially if you're here and people are not that expensive. It's really long term, which means you can take on really ambitious projects. And in terms of management overhead, it really doesn't get any better. Like for my ERC, I just did like 2 scientific reports, which are basically, you do summaries of the research you've done, and that's basically it. And just 3 financial reports. If I compare this to some of the national funding in Romania, it's just, you cannot compare, right? Like, UEFISCDI funding is comparatively, low overhead, as in you do 1 report per year, so that's more or less okay. But if you look at some of this, ministry funding, like, the cohesion funds and so forth, you have to do reports every single month. You have to write, what did you do this month? And then you go to a conference and you have to come with pictures of yourself at the conference. So it's like you're ask somebody to do a brain surgery, and while he's doing it, it's like, can you please say, exactly what you're doing in writing, like stop, just, okay, and then do it again. It's just completely ridiculous. So if you want a good reason to do ERC and you want to get away from the bureaucracy of some other funding method, this is, the best thing you can get. And, obvious thing is, it's easy to say, yeah, you should get an ERC, but how do you actually prepare for this? And it's obviously not easy. It's very competitive, as we've heard. So, and the key thing is that this is about research quality and impact. And in general, national systems, including Romania, they tend to have very clear, measurable research outputs that, unfortunately for us, they also value quantity. So if I'm a professor at UPB and I want to say, okay, what is the easiest way to become a professor? It says, well, you need to have, 30 or 20 research papers, okay? Well, I can do 20 really, really low value research papers, but I can probably not do 20 high value research papers because it's going to take me 50 years or 40 years to do like high impact research papers, right? So what would I choose? My goal is to have a higher salary and to get a mortgage and to get, raise kids, right? So if the standards are not aligned, people go for quantity, and that really doesn't help you with ERC, because if you have like 1,000 publications but none of them has real impact, you've got nothing, right? Same thing is, I publish in all areas of computer science. That doesn't work. Like, you cannot be an expert in networking and operating systems and machine learning, and maybe some exceptional people can be in all of these areas, but in general, you take one area and you maybe just move around that area or in adjacent areas, but don't do everything. You're not credible. You really, this is fundamental. If you want to do top research, you really need to want to solve tough problems, right? Which means a lot of suffering. Like, research is really about having this desire inside, like, okay, I've got a really tough problem, it's going to eat at me for many years, I don't know how to solve it, every day I think about it, right? So if that's something you have inside, then yes, you're probably good ERC material as long as you do the other things, right? If that's not the case, it's unlikely you'll succeed, because there's a lot of smart people in the world trying to solve the same problem that you're solving, and they're probably working harder than you if you're not doing this, okay? So, okay, what I'm trying to say here is that, the most important thing in doing research is what problem you select. And it took me a long time to understand this, and it's probably obvious when you say it. So when you select a ERC problem, obviously you need to know what you're talking about, but the key thing is that this has to be an open problem. It has to be societally important, as in someone needs to care about it. Like, if I tell the audience, I'm solving networks because they may ground planes, they're like, okay, that sounds like a problem worth solving. If I tell them I'm solving problems in network where you get 1% of performance, they're like, why do I care? Why is that something that the society wants to pay for, right? So it really has to matter. It has to be exciting, and it has to be open, right? But of course, any such problem is hard to solve, right, by definition. So then you also have to have an idea on how to solve it. And then, you actually do the research and you come back. So this is advice I took from my advisors, but I think Ion Stoica, who was a friend, he asked this he posed this question perfectly. He said, I was telling him, I was thinking about doing this research, whatever, and he said, before you start doing anything, just think about, let's say you solve the problem completely. How will the world change after you've done your work, right? Before you even start the work, it's like, okay, I've got this problem. Let's say I'm fully successful. How does the world change? If the answer is, who cares? Why would you work on it in the first place, right? That's the mindset. So, okay, obviously, to convince the ERC to give you the money, even though if you select a good problem, that's a must, but you also need to be able to solve it yourself. Okay, so I'm just going to skip this. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my personal path and how I sort of ended up here. So when I started my thesis, I just got some PhD scholarship from a professor in the UK, and his area was this thing called content-based publish-subscribe. Nobody here probably has heard of it. And the reality is that thing was big at that time, but it really was like a dying field. So I really worked a lot and put in countless hours in this thing, and I managed to get like a top publication out of it, but it has had literally zero impact, right? Like zero, like 30 citations in 20 years, which is ridiculous, right? And that's because, it's not an important problem. back then I didn't know. Like, I was just a PhD student. How would I know what a good problem is? Nobody taught me, right? But then I worked with some, other very good researchers, and I slowly started to understand how to choose problems, and that's actually the key part. And then we did this protocol that is now standardized, and actually this work took 3 years until we got the first publication. So can you imagine working for 3 years in academia and getting no publication whatsoever with the sort of scoring system we have? That's very hard, right? So basically, you have to work 3 years and then you get a publication, but then you get, awards and you get standards and you get a lot of recognition, right? So it's high risk, high reward. This is what ERC is all about. And then, this work led to me discovering the need for network verification, and then we got a ERC funding and so forth. My current work is on data center networking, and in particular, how do you do networking for AI networks? This is work we've been doing, since the past 15 years, but very recently it's become really important for AI. And actually, I'm part of the organizations defining the standards for these things. So, this is all about impact and picking the problems you want to work for, right? I keep telling my students or prospective PhDs, look, if you pick a bad problem, you're the same person, you're going to work equally hard. You're just not going to get anything in return for your work, right? So I will say ERC is all about excellence, right? It's easily within the reach of Romanian researchers. We have amazing talent here, and one of the main reasons I came back to Bucharest and to the Politehnica is because the students I get here are really, top-notch, and they're like the best in Europe. But really, once these guys become researchers and they want to do their own research track, this is what they should do, right? You need to focus on high-impact work and not just on, how many papers do I get this year? If the answer is, I did 20 papers last year, I really don't want to know about your papers, right? Because probably they're not particularly good if you had time to write 20 of them, right? So typically, good research means select a hard problem, take your time, and do like a really, really, really good solution. Not try to do 100 things at once. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Costin. And before beginning, I only have a few slides, but I would like to talk more besides the slides. I would like to find out how many of you in the room are here considering applying for an ERC grant, either starting or consolidated or advanced, just to know how I should focus my points. Okay, you are starting to dare to show up your hands. Are you from exact sciences, or maybe from social sciences and humanities? Social sciences? Okay, and I assume the rest more into the exact dimension. So what we're presenting here, besides our own ERC project, is also perspectives from multiple fields. I come from philosophy. ERC is wide open to all categories of science, all domains of knowledge. And I would also like to salute Ionuț Purescu-Pascovici, who's also in the room and is an ERC grantee himself in history. So you can approach him during the coffee break and ask for advice on applying for an ERC grant as well. What should you do when considering applying for an ERC grant, either a starting or a consolidated or an advanced grant? My suggestion is look for all sorts of support that you can find. I don't think ERC, although of course we focus on excellence and on the quality of the research of each individual PI, a principal investigator, I don't think applying for an ERC is as an individual endeavor as it usually is presented. It's rather a collective endeavor. At least this is my own experience, and this is something that I discuss with many people across Europe, including the ones in the ambassadors for the ERC network that I'm briefly going to discuss about. They all discussed about how much institutional support they had in preparing their grant application. Unfortunately, Romania scores below the level of the sea at this point, with some minor few exceptions that we're going to tackle later on at the roundtable. Things are improving. You can reach out to our national contact point for the ERC. She's somewhere in the room as well. You can contact her during the coffee break to find that type of support that you need, because it doesn't only take a brilliant idea. You need to have multiple ingredients that will take your proposal to the second step of the evaluation, and finally to the list of ERC-funded A proposals. At my home university, which is the University of Bucharest, this was the first ERC grant received with all the application phase. Ionuț had the project that he moved to the University of Bucharest, so there was quite little know-how beforehand. For me, I think the game changer was the fact that I reached out to the team that I already knew I wanted to work with and involved them in every step of the process. I discussed with them my idea and refined it. I included them in the list of people who would review my application and asked them to be as harsh as possible over the application. And then when moving on to the second phase and preparing for the interview, I benefited from their support organizing various mock interviews. And these are the steps that usually researchers from Western Europe usually benefit from their own university. They are, first of all, pushed into applying for an ERC grant. They are given the time to do that, the autonomy to do that, the resources to do that. And time maybe is the most precious resource that you might be given in a university or a research institute in order to prepare for your ERC application. And they are also given the administrative and scientific tools to do that. And as much as it seems that we usually don't stand a chance in competing with all this institutional support, we do stand a chance, and we are here a proof of that. We had a very small chance, but we took it, and it finally became real. It became successful. When you should apply for an ERC grant, because I think this is the main question, when is the right moment to do that? I think it's already when you have either whether you're applying for a starting grant or a consolidator or an advanced grant, I think it is the moment where you already have developed pretty well your brilliant frontier research idea. And when you already have a track record that is currently not evaluated that much in the process, the ERC has just, starting last year, has just diminished the emphasis that they put on the CV, on the track record of the principal investigator. One of the reasons being especially that discrepancy between Eastern and Western Europe in the way researchers build up their CVs. But still, your track record is relevant, and is relevant, I would say, particularly in the way you are empowered to develop your idea, to develop that idea that is going to bring you the funding. At the same time, I think you would need to consider that the grant writing process is not as easy as in some cases. Costin here has mentioned, I don't know, about a few weeks in writing his grant proposal. I had more time invested in particularly given the time to explicitly write the grant application, which was more than 2 months. But I have been given a lot of thought about applying for an ERC grant for almost 5 years before applying. I applied in 2022, and the project is now halfway through. We started in 2024. So it's exactly halfway through. And I think you need to give you space and time to refine your idea, to present it to different scholars, connect well. And I think this is maybe if I were to give one single maybe inside clue into what you need to do in order to improve your chances to receiving an ERC grant, is connect to the international research community. Go to conferences, present your ideas, try to get as much feedback as possible, because this is something that is going to improve your chances in refining the idea to the point that you are going to receive the grant. Okay, and let me just briefly present the project, just to give you an idea on how, what types of ideas have received funding, at least from the Romanian research community. I don't think you can see well enough, but I'm going to talk more about besides the slides. The project is a project in philosophy. It concerns moral responsibility for the way we engage with and through digital and robotic avatars in various spaces. I think, okay. It discusses a model that I had previously developed in a related field in business ethics. I have discussed the concept of moral responsibility in multiple contexts, and I had previously developed a model for explaining the intersection between individual and collective level of moral responsibility in organizations. That was called mutually enhancing moral responsibility. One of the things that I have envisioned when discussing about these new emerging communities mediated by digital and robotic avatars was whether we can apply these types of models. And this is one of the, let's call them strategies, that people applying for an ERC grant have, trying to test whether some models from a different or a related field work and how they would work in another field. This is one of the ways that I use to visualize the type of research packages and research dimensions that I would tackle. I have divided the scientific work in 3 working packages, which is not something that you are explicitly supposed to at the level of a starting grant, but I found it relevant. I have used the first working package related to conceptualizing this idea of what it takes to be a moral agent, what it takes to be ascribed moral responsibility across various fields. At the individual, collective, and artificial level at the same time, and connecting these dimensions in between. And then the second work package would refer to individual moral behavior when we are interacting with digital avatars in virtual environments, whether this would lead to human moral de-skilling or, on the contrary, to human moral enhancement. And finally, I have proposed tools from the new field of experimental moral philosophy, and conducting several experiments and seeing how the way we interact via avatars is going to impact our moral behavior. And last but not least, these all would fit into one of the approaches that we are using in philosophy to balance the theory and the practice, which is moral equilibrium, reflective equilibrium. And this is part of the remaining working packages that we are still have left in the grant. Okay, and I'm going to close with just a few words over the Ambassadors for the ERC network, which is a newly established network. It is a fully public network. You can reach out to every person in the Ambassadors for the ERC network, maybe to who are closer to your research field and who can give you a glimpse of whether your idea, for instance, is worthwhile developing for an ERC proposal. This is a network set up last year. This is the second year of the network. It consists of people who have already been awarded an ERC grant at various levels. And they are all advocating for frontier research, for fundamental science across Europe, to all sorts of policymakers, but also to prospective ERC candidates. It works, okay. And yeah, this is the main key that all ERC ambassadors for the ERC support in correlation with the associations for the ERC grantees, which is this association that has kindly offered support to the European Research Council. I am going to stop here and let me see if we maybe we can still have time for one or maximum two questions from the audience, if there is some pressing question now. Otherwise, we're going to take it afterwards. We still have about 3 minutes left of this session, so we are quite on time. So if somebody has already a specific question in mind regarding, maybe I would say, applying for an ERC grant, why should you apply, when should you apply, etc., we are here to answer. Okay, Madeleine.
The same thing is true for LLMs.
Thank you very much. Very interesting, the presentation. I wondering if there are some important fields which can be representing for applying for this project, some representative direction of research which you are. And then the second is if how we know about which is the novelty of this. We develop the novelty, we develop the application of a system, of a technology. In which direction should we concern to insist written by our project's proposals?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I guess this is an open question for either of us. If
for you,
or particularly, okay. I would say that there is no favored field of research that is going to help you receive an ERC starting or advanced or consolidator grant. So you can apply from any research field, if I understood correctly the first question. So you don't need to think that your research field is not relevant enough in order to receive an ERC grant or apply for this type of grant. What you need to consider, however, is that the type of project that you are proposing needs to be fundamental research, frontier research. It needs to propose a breakthrough idea, a very innovative idea, not only an incremental progress. There are other funding tools for incremental research. ERC funds only breakthrough, and this is something that even if you have the best written project, unless you have an idea that is really breakthrough, you're not going to receive the grant. And this is something that we need to know well in advance, because sometimes people are disappointed because they had written very nice proposals, but they don't receive funding. You need to have this breakthrough idea. And how you're going to grow your breakthrough idea, I would say through scientific discussion, scientific interaction with other researchers in the field. Go to international conference, go to top international conferences and see. So, of course, we are all reading a lot of research, but you still need to interact with other people, feel what is going to be the next step or the next 2 steps in your specific research domain. And this is how the idea is finally going to work out. And Professor Maria Leptin, would you like to add something?
I'll add something to everything you guys have said. So first of all, I thought that those were exactly the right answers. Your peers will, if you deliver a talk at a meeting and everybody goes to sleep, then that project is not for the ERC. But they're excited. And that's where you get the feedback, and feedback matters. So what I wanted to say is, Alina gave good advice. The forms have changed, so it's very different now. So make sure you get recent advice on the forms, and I'll be happy to talk more about that and the format of the application. Everybody in the room, don't take Costin's example and think you can write a grant in 1 week. Maybe some people can, but most people take more than 1.5 months for their first. Yeah, exactly. Compared to the time, I think some people can write papers in one week, but that is extremely unusual. The interview in person, you wanted to know. I agree that the interview in person is better. I think many of our panels do, but they are such a burden on the environment. And the people who want to reduce the carbon footprint of the ERC, we've not been able to get it past them. So I'll report this back.
Have the candidates walk in.
Have the candidates walk in, yeah.
Take the
That's
train.
a good one. That's a good one. What I wanted to know from you is why you did not reapply in 2022.
I'm currently very, very busy trying to get these things I'm currently very busy trying to standardize a lot of these things, and I have industry roles also. There's just other things came in. Yeah.
Because that's another thing to say. If you nearly got through, reapply. Even if you didn't nearly get through, you get feedback. There are people who say, I'm not the ERC type of person. That is nonsense. There is no ERC type of person, except the ones who are willing to suffer and, insist. And that's what we all do in our science. We have to do that. Yep. So do reapply. I met a woman in Estonia who reapplied 7 times before she got her grant. And she said, every time I rewrote it, it was good for me, just the rewriting and the thinking. And then she finally got her grant.
Okay, thank you. And on that very nice thought, would you like something to?
Yes, so thank you very much for sharing your experience and insight. And I wonder if you want to make a step further and evaluate some pre-proposals that our peers, Romanian peers, are doing. So maybe, since you already did this for your colleagues, maybe with the help of UEFIS-CDI, we can launch some kind of pre-proposal analysis. It's not an evaluation that can take or not into account your advice, but at least would be useful for them to improve their proposal.
Yeah, I think there's already an informal network doing this, like sharing proposals and reviewing proposals, but happy to see any formal attempt.
And I think Professor Adrian Curaj is going to tell us more about the mentoring program that is doing the exact thing that you have mentioned.
Thank you so much. I think we don't have time to go into details now,
no.
But definitely at the panel level I will address this. Thank you so much, and thank you for presenting such an inspiring way what you have done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And we're now going to move fast forward to our last session before the break. And I would like to invite the ERC Scientific Officer, Maria Siomos, to tell us more about the process. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Maria Siomos. I'm the panel coordinator of LS2, which is one of the life sciences panels at ERC. And today I'm just going to tell you about the ERC's funding schemes, and I'm also going to give you some tips about writing a good proposal. So let's look at the individual grants that we have. So we have starting grants, consolidator grants, and advanced grants. Starting grants are for people who are between 0 and 10 years post-PhD. Consolidator grants for people 5 to 15 years post-PhD. And I should say these eligibility windows are new from the 2027 calls. And in fact, these calls are going to be published next month in July. Advanced grants are for established research leaders, so of any age, but well, let's say towards the older category. So for starting grants, you can have 1.5 million years over 5 years. For consolidator, 2 million euros, and for advanced grant, 2.5 million euros. It's also possible to apply for extra funding of up to 1 million euros. This could be if you need more personnel, maybe you need equipment, maybe you need consumables. It can be anything you want. We no longer have any predefined cost categories for this. If by any chance you're relocating to a European Union country or an associated country from elsewhere to take up the grant, then you can apply for up to 2 million euros of extra funding, and this is part of the Choose Europe initiative. New this year, in 2026, we have the ERC Plus grants. They're also for individual PIs. They're for outstanding PIs at any stage of their career to address a major scientific challenge that cannot be carried out with a regular ERC grant. That might be because it's too expensive or it needs more time. And these grants are up to 7 million euros and 4 to 7 years. What I should mention is the ERC Plus grants, you can only get once in your career, and actually the starting grants and the consolidator grants are also going to be once in a career grant starting from the 2027 call. Beyond individual grants, we also have synergy grants, which are for between 2 and 4 PIs. These are up to 10 million euros for 6 years, with the possibility to apply for an additional 4 million euros of funding. And what's interesting here is that one of the PIs can be based outside of the European Union or an associated country. And as you already heard from one of the Romanian grantees, there is the possibility to apply for proof of concept grants. These are these lump sums of 150,000 euros. They're only open to ERC grant holders and actually have a quite high success rate. So I encourage anybody who has an ERC grant to take advantage of this. And this money can be used to look into bridging the gap between research and the earliest stage of marketable innovation. So what does the evaluation process look like? Well, it's a 2-step evaluation process and also a 2-document evaluation process. So here I'm talking about starting grants, consolidator, and advanced. In step 1, our panel members act as generalists and look at the part 1 of your scientific proposal. They then meet in Brussels and they decide who to pass to step 2, up to 44 proposals. In step 2, again, the panel members evaluate the proposal, but in addition, there are external reviewers who are actually specialists in the topic of each particular proposal. Then again, there's a meeting in Brussels with interviews, and then the panel will decide who gets funded. One of your colleagues here mentioned that the interview was only 4 slides in 7 minutes. This can vary depending on the panel, so just so that you're aware of that. For ERC Plus grants, it's going to be a similar evaluation in terms of having 2 steps and 2 documents, but the step 1 panel is going to be different from the step 2 panel. The step 1 panel is actually going to be the advanced grant panels from this year. So an applicant will have to choose one of our 28 panels. I will come to them in a second. And then they will decide retained, not retained, and there will be no cap for passing excellent proposals to step 2. In step 2, the proposal will be read again by advanced grant panel members, by specialist reviewers, external reviewers in the topic of the proposal, but there will be a new step 2 grant panel, the ERC Plus grant panel, and they are the ones who will take the decision. And what is important to know there is that these will be very broad panels in step 2. There will be a mixture of life sciences, physics and engineering, and social sciences and humanities in each of the panels. This is expected to be a very competitive call, don't worry, with only 30 grants given out in 2026. So think very carefully before deciding to apply for an ERC Plus grant rather than for the regular starting consolidator or advanced. For synergy, the evaluation process is actually over 3 steps. I'm not going to go into the details just because there's not enough time, but again, it's a 2-document evaluation system. If any of you is interested in having these slides, please come to me afterwards and I will write down your email address and make sure that you get them. So what is our evaluation panel structure? You see it here. We have 3 domains: life sciences, physics and engineering, and social sciences and humanities. We have 9 life sciences panels, 11 physics and engineering panels, and 8 social sciences and humanities panels. So if you want to apply, the advice is really start early. Register early, download the templates for the writing the proposal. You can go to our website here and get the documents, read all the call documents. We have information for applicants. We have the work program. The newest work program will be published next month, as I said. There are also frequently asked questions. You have to choose your host institution, which can be in any European Union country or associated country. I guess here we're talking about Romania. If you would like to do this, you have to speak with your host institution and their grant office, because you will need a letter from them saying basically that if you get the grant, that they will employ you over this period and allow you to do your research. You can also contact the ERC with any specific questions, and we have functional mailboxes for that. I've just shown the 2 functional mailboxes of upcoming calls. And if you do have collaborators, make sure that you have their written consent. You can just do this via email. You don't need to submit this to us, but it's important that you have that consent. So how do you choose a panel? I just showed you there are 28 panels. You can see there were the various titles. We have even more in detail keywords for each panel, so you should look at that. But it's also, I think, important to look at who has been a panel member evaluating on a particular panel and what types of projects have been funded by a particular panel. And all of this information is available on our website. You have to choose one panel. If you feel that your proposal is somehow interdisciplinary and could benefit by having expertise in the evaluation from a secondary panel, you can also indicate this, and then you should explain why you think that is the case. Your proposal will, in most cases, be evaluated by your panel of first choice. Occasionally, if it looks like maybe you made a mistake, or if the necessary expertise is in a different panel, the proposal could be transferred. If this happens, you will be informed of that. So you have to decide whether to apply for a starting grant or a consolidator grant or an advanced grant. So as I told you about the eligibility windows, they are actually now overlapping between starting and consolidator. So it will be up to you to decide where you think you are in your career, perhaps also about how much money you want, because you can get a little bit more money for consolidator than you can for starting grant. And here I show you the dates during which you would have to have received your PhD in order to apply for a starting grant or a consolidator grant in 2027. I should also tell you that this eligibility window can be extended for actually quite a long list of reasons. For example, maternity leave, paternity leave, or parental leave, long-term illness of yourself or of a close family member, national service, clinical training, major disasters, including armed conflict, seeking asylum, gender-based violence, or any other form of violence. So if any of this can help you, please look into the details of that. The other thing is, if you have previously applied to the ERC, do check our resubmission restrictions, because they might stop you applying in a future call. Everybody who gets an ERC grant must spend at least 50% of their working time in an EU member state or associated country. And we also have minimum time commitments on the projects, which are 50% for starting grant, 40% for consolidator, and 30% for advanced grant or synergy. In terms of the call calendar, we still have 2 open calls in the 2026 call calendar. So the advanced grants deadline is coming up at the end of August, and the ERC Plus deadline on the 2nd of September. And there's also one more deadline for POC grants this year. The 2027 call calendar is expected to look very similar to this, except for the synergy call, which will likely open a few months later in February 2027. So that was what you can apply for. And now I'd just like to give you a few tips on how to have a successful proposal. So I think some of your colleagues were already talking about this. So I think you must have, of course, the idea, and you have to have this breakthrough potential, but you also do need to write well. And we do see proposals that maybe do have a very good idea, but are not well written. And of course, we can have the opposite, where things are well written, but the idea was not good enough. So here, I'm going to help you on the second part, which is the good grantsmanship. So if you think about the scientific proposal, you have to write an abstract, which is, of course, a very condensed summary of what you plan to do. And then you have this part 1, which is up to 5 pages. And there you are asked to talk about the idea, its breakthrough potential, the current state of knowledge, the scientific questions and the objectives, and also, very importantly, the scientific approaches and the strategy to reach those goals. Since the 2026 call, feasibility is no longer assessed at step 1. However, what I would like to warn you is, nevertheless, please give sufficient detail about the scientific approaches that you're going to use, and also include preliminary data if you have it, or any proof of concept. What our panels have noticed is, since feasibility is not being assessed, some applicants have become very superficial in their description of the scientific approaches, and that's not useful for the panel. So part 2 is a more in-depth document. It goes now up to 7 pages, so it has been drastically reduced from the 15 that your colleague was talking about. For Synergy, it's up to 10 pages. And here, you should talk about the detailed methodology, your work plan, risk assessment, mitigating measures, timescales, and use of resources. So basically what you should try to think of is that part 1 and part 2, you don't want copy-paste between them. You should think of part 2 being the continuation of part 1 so that you can read them as a single document if you pass to step 2. So general tips about the presentation of your proposal. Divide it into sections with clear headings. Use the full space that is available to you, but not more. Our evaluators do not go beyond the page limits. Follow our formatting constraints, and I've written what they are. Check the coherence of figures and figure legends, and give full references using a commonly used reference style in your field, for example, the American Chemical Society, the American Medical Association, or Modern Language Association. Please note that the references do not contribute to the page limit, so there's no reason not to give these in full. When talking about the research, clearly explain and reference the quantitative and qualitative differences to the state of the art. Explain your hypothesis and provide supporting evidence. And do give an honest presentation of your work, of the work of others. This includes the order of authorships on papers, and do not oversell the work. Our panels notice this and are not impressed by it. And very importantly, only list collaborators who have agreed to collaborate. It happens from time to time that our panel members read a proposal and find out that they're a collaborator on a project for which they did not realize that they were. So they're never happy about that. And carefully justify the requested resources. Style, format, and grammar. So it is important to correct spelling errors and grammar, and also to pay attention to formatting. You may think it's not so important, but sometimes if you're sloppy there, maybe someone thinks you're sloppy somewhere else in the way you do the research. And especially this part on the left-hand side, we often see proposals where every second word is in bold and then other parts are in italics and other things are underlined. It honestly makes it very difficult just to read for the eye, and our panel members are very busy. They have to read a lot of proposals, so they have to use their time well. So if you write something like, this is a groundbreaking proposal, and you write groundbreaking in bold, this is not helpful, and even the entire sentence is not helpful. Use the precious space. You don't have much. Use it for things that are really of, content of importance. When you describe your objectives, try to think of these paintings that I have here. One is really in focus and the other is blurred. Maybe if I could give you an example. We have a lot of proposals these days that say, I'm going to use artificial intelligence to help me solve this problem. This is a very, what I would call a shallow and blurred sentence. If you could write something like, I'm going to use the particular artificial intelligence method in order to do X, Y, and Z, and we know that this method has been useful because it has been used, whatever, in another field before, and you can maybe also mention that you have experience in this, then suddenly your objective becomes credible. You mentioned before something that you have to choose a good problem. And I agree that you have to choose a good problem, but sometimes when you do fundamental research, you don't necessarily have to have the societal impact immediately there. Of course, it depends what you're doing and in which subject. So I come from the life sciences, and sometimes people think they must immediately explain to us why this is important for curing a particular disease. Of course, we have proposals that aim to do that. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that. So what I want to say is, if you are really focusing on something very fundamental, don't feel that you have to explain the societal impact. Our panels are instructed not actually to look into the societal impact, but really to look at the scientific impact. You don't always know what something can be used for later. Okay, so once you have your objectives spelled out nicely and clearly, you also have to decide how they fit in with each other. It's not useful just to give a list. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. No, I've got these different objectives or work packages, whatever you want to call them, aims, and you have to see, are you going to work on different things in parallel to come to some common goal, or do you have dependencies of one objective on another one? So that's very important to explain. And then you have also to think about the risks. If you're doing something very high risk, of course, things can go wrong. So how can you convince a panel that nevertheless they should fund your work? So you have to mitigate these risks. So perhaps having preliminary data to show that you have already maybe done something towards what you're doing can be helpful. You have to have some kind of measures or criteria for measuring your progress. Look at the dependencies of these objectives. For example, avoid having a very high risk objective on which everything else depends, because then maybe people wonder, well, if that doesn't work out, well, what will happen with the rest of your project? Foresee pitfalls and also plan alternative strategies. And what I would say is very important, in every single part 2 that you write, do include a Gantt chart where you really explain what are the different tasks, what is the timeline, who are the team members, and who is going to do what and when. And this way you can also explain to the panel you've really thought through the project as a whole. When you write your CV and track record, it's correct what your colleague was saying, that the ERC has asked our panels to focus a little bit more on the project than on the track record, but nevertheless the track record is important. And when you explain what you've already done, it is important also to explain your particular contribution. So you're now asked to list your top 10 outputs. These outputs can be publications. Very often they're publications. They could be a patent, it could be a license, it could be a database. In the humanities, it might be an exhibition. It could be all kinds of different things. But in any one of those cases, it's important to explain what your personal contribution was. If you're the first author on a publication, or perhaps the last author, it might be obvious, but maybe you're a middle author on a very important publication. But it's important to explain, what did you do? What did you bring to that research? And especially, it's important to explain your conceptual independence from your PhD and postdoc mentors, and really write it in words. So just coming to the statistics in Romania, so you have 14 grants, including two proof of concepts that we heard about. This is an average success rate in Romania of 2%, which unfortunately is below the average success rate of 12% that we see across Europe. What I can mention is that proposals that have passed to step 2 actually have a very high success rate in applications from Romania, 60%. I think it was the highest that I saw of the statistics from different countries. And you also have more than 50 Romanians abroad who have ERC grants, and around 90% of them were already abroad at the time of application. In terms of the breakdown, I think you already heard, 8 starting grants, 2 advanced and 4 consolidator. And in terms of domains, there are 5 in physics and engineering and 9 in social sciences and humanities. So we're still waiting for a life sciences project, which would be very nice to see. And I'm just coming to the very end here. So I think it was already mentioned that we have a visiting fellowship program and a mentoring initiative, and Romanians can take part in both of these. And if you go to our part of the website or also speak with your national contact points, they will be able to tell you exactly how you can participate in these programs. And people have found them actually to be very helpful. We also have on YouTube something called ERC Classes. And these are videos made by staff from the ERC and talking about the various parts of proposal preparation and the interview, etc., which you can also listen to and can be helpful to you. And with that, I say thank you very much. I don't know if we have time for questions. That's for others to decide. But if you would like to have a copy of these slides, please come to me, and you're welcome to come and also talk to me during the break. Okay. As you wish. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a short break for 10 minutes now, a coffee break, and after this is the roundtable, with also with the participation of the President Leptin, and after this the session of Q&A for our colleague from ERC, and also Q&A for the President. The question for the President, and I hope also the response. Thank you so much. 10 minutes break.
My great joy and honor to moderate this panel with these great minds. Besides, in one of the previous panels, we were discussing some individual efforts into securing an ERC grant, and now we're moving on to this institutional perspective, because as we highlighted previously, it doesn't only take brilliant researchers, it also takes the research infrastructure and the institutions to support them into securing an ERC grant. And this is why today we are accompanied by all these representatives who are key in Romanian policy making, research infrastructures, and universities, also research institutes. And I would like to start with the background of the ERC Scientific Council's white paper on widening countries, and highlighting the gap that we still face between the widening countries, particularly Eastern Europe, and countries that invest more in research, particularly countries in Western Europe. And I'm going to quote two things that the white paper makes really explicit. The first one, the research policies and investments of each EU member state will remain the key factors influencing national research quality and competitiveness in ERC calls. And the second point, the most effective solutions must largely come from, largely be developed within widening countries themselves. So it's up to each country to develop those internal resources in supporting their potential ERC candidates into securing ERC grants. Because excellence remains this high bar for ERC evaluation, the sole criterion, but this is a really high level criterion. So I would maybe start by addressing an opening question to ERC President, Professor Maria Leptin, asking, in this context of widening participation, what would you identify as one key priority, or maybe three key priorities that Romania and usually widening countries need to consider in order to improve success rates in ERC grants and overall in frontier research?
Yes, well, thank you. I've already said them this morning, and I've also said that I'm very satisfied that I'm in German we say I'm running through open doors, because I've heard that Romania has already taken them on board. One is, of course, national funding. You know, you can't expect to win the 1%. ERC funds only 1% of all fundamental research in Europe. You can't expect to win that if you don't have a strong basis in your own country. I mean, a few individuals is great, and we can see that they win grants, but there has to be a strong basis. It's, you know, this week the World Cup is starting, the national teams are playing. They only work because at the World Cup level, because the kids are trained in the countries, and then there's the junior league, and then there's the second league, and then there's the national league. It all has to be done within the country for their people to make it to the World Cup. ERC is exactly the same. If you don't have the national training, the national strong basis, it won't work. That's one thing. So funding is one. The other is research careers. What I've seen is that in countries where there is funding, but all the power is in the hands of, I'm sorry, dear colleagues here, I'm old, I'm white, but I'm not male, is in the hand of old people, and they're very often males, so a young researcher who comes in does not have a career perspective. They're not independent. They don't get their own independent space. They don't get own independent access to funding. It all depends on somebody else. That is not attractive to young people. So careers, and they have no career prospects. Nobody tells them what they have to perform, how they have to perform to be made permanent, if there is even a permanent job 5 years down the line. That's that. And then the third thing is the mutual help network that you yourself have mentioned. But you know, all of these things have already been said, so I'm just reiterating them. Money, career, the infrastructure, but I heard that the top world laser is here.
Yes.
I heard about the Danube Delta being developed, so it's all happening. But, you know, even so, the percentage of GDP here is not commensurate with the excellence that exists and with the ambitions that I'm hearing about today.
Okay, thank you so much. And we're going to continue with our roundtable, and I will kindly ask our panelist members to think about those hands-on initiatives that can be fostered within their own institutions in order to support frontier research in Romania and also ensure a higher level of success in ERC competitions, Horizon Europe competitions. Maybe we can address maybe quickly these few points so that we can also open the floor for questions from the audience. So maybe I would kindly ask Valentina Sandu-Dediu, Rector of the New Europe College, to emphasize, because they have this, they have a very atypical context that shows that irrespective of the size of the institution, a lot of ERC grants can be received, can be won, maybe by providing the sort of international exposure, the intellectual environment, and I would like to invite to comment on
Thank you so much. I think probably our institution is more than atypical, is, as I told you previously, a little bit extraterrestrial. Because we are talking here about our state university and research institute system. And I come also, and I work in a state university. I'm a professor of musicology in the National University of Music in Bucharest. All my life I did this. And since 2014, I am the rector of New Europe College. This is an institution, totally private institution. And this makes us extraterrestrial, actually, because there is another, institutional culture and possibility which is developed there. I don't know if everyone knows, but this is an institute for advanced study funded in 1994 by the philosopher and writer Andrei Pleșu. And it was exactly funded with the idea of excellency, elite, quality of research, freedom of research, and this was so hard to maintain until nowadays. But this is another story. I'm glad to answer these kind of questions. About our ERC grants, indeed we host since 2015 all kinds of ERC grants, starting consolidator, other kinds of cooperating partners, and now an advanced grant. So since 2015 until 2028, so far, we continuously hosted these ERC grants. And there are many secrets I might share, but I don't know if they are useful for my colleagues in another institutional culture, which I also very well understand. Because what we are doing, we already started having an international structure, and we had a very good selection of our fellows. We have an international academic board. But what we did and was successful was encouraging and sustaining focus groups. When our alumni wanted and had private initiatives in developing own ideas, and they found colleagues from the same discipline, but mostly from other disciplines, who shared their interests. I forgot to say that we are a humanist and social science institute. So when they found that and they wanted these focus groups, we absolutely, and with very huge enthusiasm, we supported them. And from these focus groups, ERC grants came out. So we also had a help from the UEFISC CDI agency, because Adrian Curaj devised this instrument of, giving a prize to institutions who were successful in receiving ERC grants. So with the money received as prize, we could develop other focus groups and other good ideas. And indeed, it's exactly what you also said. Our fellows were not successful from the first time, but we encouraged them, and usually the second time they were successful. It is always addressed to our alumni, so we know exactly with whom we work. We have a staff of exactly 15 people, that's all. And we develop, we have more than 1,000 fellows until now and researchers. We have every year around 35 fellows, international fellows, and these research teams. So to end with, and I could talk much more, to end with, I have to tell you this, well, it's a half of a joke. Many years ago, I was in Cluj. I was telling Mr. Rector this story, and we had a roundtable about research, and we were at the beginning of our ERC experience, and someone asked me, quite nervous, I might say, what are you doing? What are you giving these people so they come to you and not go to their universities? And I was a little bit embarrassed. What should I answer? So in a spontaneous way, I said spiritual warmth. So this is my advice from the institution. Give warmth and friendship to the staff, and maybe things will happen.
Okay. Thank you so much. And moving to our host here, Rector Mihnea Costoiu from the University Politehnica of Bucharest, to see a different perspective from a university that is this huge institutional body. How can such a big university foster prospective ERC candidates into applying and securing their ERC grants? We've seen already 2 ERC grantees from your own university. How can you empower future prospective candidates into making this step towards frontier research?
I return to my, thank you so much for this question, and thank you so much again, President and our colleague, the panelists, for accept this discussion. And I have, if it's necessary, long intervention, but I cut and I cut and I cut. It's very important. We are one of the largest universities in this part of the Europe, and we are very engaged in research area with a lot of grants, a lot of, we apply in different institutions, also in ERC, all European institutions, and not only European. We have grants financed by American institutions, Japanese institutions, and so on, and many private grants, many agreements with the companies. It's very important for us for realize realize this next step, because we have in the last approx 10 years more than 1 billion euros, it's, we attract more than 1 billion euros in the competition across the world. I repeat, of course, a lot of money coming from Europe, but in my opinion, not enough coming from some European agency. And for us, it's very important to encourage the people. We invest a lot of resources in infrastructure because we have a problem with this many years. And can we speak about the engineers, the apply science? It's very important. Second, we invest a lot of money in research and in young generation. Maybe it's not enough because the brain drain in Romania is a big problem, and this is the reality. And last but not least, we put in the table now, we are in the middle of debate in the body of the university for put in the table a new strategy for encourage the people who apply in the most important grants like ERC. Of course, we have here Alina, very good and very strong, and Costin, of course. But it's not only these colleagues, this is grantees, but for us it's very important for put also our resources and the national resources, because Adrian is here and know exactly what I say. And I'm honest, I'm not very happy to speak about this, and I finish with this. It's necessary to encourage also our government to support the investment in research. And I speak in the last many years, and in the last week, I put in the Facebook and social media and speak in the media and so on the importance of investment in research. And I'm sure maybe with our investment and with very good strategy, maybe we optimize the resources to put together the effort and also apply and have success also in ERC. If it's necessary, I speak 2 days, but usually I speak too much. Sorry.
Thank you so much. And now moving to a different institutional perspective, which is the Romanian Academy, I would like to kindly invite Mihai Cîmpeanu, President of the Section of Biological Sciences of the Romanian Academy, to share a perspective of how can the Romanian Academy support researchers into conducting frontier research, securing an ERC grant, also maybe sharing a perspective as a panelist, evaluator, what do Romanian researchers miss? What's obvious and what they would need to improve their chances of receiving these grants.
Thank you for your questions. And first of all, I'd like just 1 second.
No. Merge.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. First of all, Madame le Président de l'ERC, I'm very happy and thank you for coming, and I was very impressed by your presentation. Professor Costoiu, thank you for inviting me, Professor Curaj, and everybody, the ministers and dear colleagues. The Romanian Academy. As you know very well, I drove a few lines, so I will not talk too long. There are 2 questions. First is about the Romanian Academy. As you know very well, the Romanian Academy has 2 functions. One is to celebrate personalities, recognize personalities in different fields of science and culture in general. And the second important function is the Romanian Academy is a very strong, active center of research. There are about 60 institutes in the Academy. What we are trying very hard since a long time, like everybody else in this room, is to convince the decision makers that no research is durable without basic research, without fundamental research. And not most, but a lot of fundamental research is going on in the Romanian Academy. But probably we can do more. We tried this, but we can, not probably, certainly we can do more. So that's the Academy to have a more active voice in changing the philosophy. This is what we have to change, the philosophy of decision maker, not of people around this table, and to build a culture of science. Too much? Okay. Definitely we have to put more energy in our trials and to convince decision makers that need of how scientific excellence is understood and rewarded. We have to do together to convince with examples, maybe known from the past. I always give examples of the last discoveries in basic research, which right now they are implemented and they are part of the real technological advancement of the country, but it's based on basic research. And also we have to convince, to be more active in convincing that the best investment in the future of this country is the investment in the new generation and especially the new generation of scientists. As this is extremely important. It starts with the education, but it should go all along the time of formation of a specialist. We need more specialists. We will be out of them if we don't do something. Maybe the Romanian Academy and the Ministry of Research, Education and Research, together with personalities which are around here. Together maybe we can form the critical mass. We need a critical mass to convince the establishment of the merit of science and investment in science. The Romanian Academy is trying, as you know, to set the standards of excellence, invest in emerging fields, and we have to do this together with the Ministry, with Professor Curaj, I should say, invest in emerging fields and create environments. I think this is what we are missing, the environments where scientists can express their talents and curiosity. This requires some strategic moves. The Academy should continue to establish elite, to establish competence, to establish competitive research programs focused on frontier topics. But maybe like the AI and so on, quantum science and so on. Funds, we need funds, definitely. Research means funds and freedom. Freedom of choosing new paths, going on new paths in science. So you need a little bit of freedom as a scientist, and I will go to the second question with this. For example, and also to serve the society. This I understand very well. I'm working in an institute of cellular biology and pathology, and our credo is cell and molecular biology for the benefits of human health. So in all fields, we can do something to improve the life of the society. But this takes me to the second question which you asked. It's about scientists and about researchers. Well, first of all, I should tell you that I learned a lot from being an evaluator at ERC some years ago. I really learned a lot, and I enjoyed meeting wonderful people and getting the good criteria for evaluating a research project. Romanians have talent for research. This is my opinion. What do you need? What do they need to get more international to get the international grants and so on? Well, first of all, I would say that Romanian researchers need more courage. Really, you have to try, and I think this is what science is, research is. You shake, and then gaining something, losing a little, gaining a little. So I think the researchers need more courage. They are a little bit shy. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them. I work with a lot of young people in my institute. There are about 40 young people. I think that they should have more courage to try. And, but also they need a stable and better research ecosystem. This is, I think, important. They need a better research ecosystem. Most important, they need predictability, as Professor Curaj knows very well, because he is trying to obtain this, but not yet, is not yet done. So predictability, to know the time when a competition starts, each September or each December or every 2, whatever. So predictability, and also they need long-term fundings. Usually 2-3 years, 2 years it's definitely not enough. 3 years is not enough. 5 years is fantastic. And I am very glad that right now you have started this type of applications and type of connections, having grants for 5 years. This is something. You can really do a lot. The increase is not slow increase with each year. In the year 4 and 5, I think it will be much better. I did work on NIH grants when I was young, and I know very well that 5 years grants are fantastic, are really good. You really can do science. So the researchers need predictability, long-term funding, capacity to change to modern equipment. So there should be special grants for modern equipment. Competitiveness grows when researchers have both freedom to pursue ambitious ideas, and the institutional support. I think this is very important. And I'm trying very hard to give the support for my young colleagues, my young researchers. And they also need a national academic culture that rewards value, quality, and integrity. It was a lot done in the last years, I think. It was a lot, but still there is a lot to be done. And especially for young scientists, I think my plea is for young scientists. We really have to take care of them because they get depressed. We don't get, we are addicted. So we will not get depressed if we don't get a grant or if the paper was not accepted the third time and we try again and so on. So we are addicted. But young people, they get depressed and they come to me and they tell me, I'm not good for science. I'm not successful. A second, and they also they don't have the patience to wait 1 year, 2 years, and so on. So they need encouragement and support from senior scientists. This is important. As I said, the situation has improved clearly in the last years, and we are very fortunate. Most important, stable, predictable funding, not just funding, stable, predictable funding, multi-year grants, funding for both basic fundamental research and applied research, reduced bureaucracy. This is all hope for this in Brussels and in Romania. I think that we are the beneficiary of both the Brussels bureaucracy and the Romanian bureaucracy. I don't know which one is more, but we have them both. So less bureaucracy, especially for young people, and accessing and reporting grants, bureaucracy in reporting grants. I think there is more to say, but I don't want to.
There's always even more to say, but thank you so much for your insightful thoughts. And as you mentioned, research environments and modern equipment, let's move on to Călin Nur, Project Director at the Extreme Light Infrastructures Nuclear Physics. This is cutting-edge technology in Romania. This is a major research infrastructure. In a nutshell, what can you share about the environment and the way you can foster breakthrough research instead of incremental, for instance?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to these discussions. And, I think that building ELIMP, Extreme Light Infrastructure Nuclear Physics, was an experience from which we can learn a lot. Mm-hmm. So if we are thinking, if we put in balance, let's say, single projects that allow you to evolve gradually to an objective, or to have large infrastructure projects that allow you to make breakthrough in science. Mm-hmm. So looking back now, after more than one decade of implementing the infrastructure at ELIMP, we can say that it takes longer if you want to implement something big, but then the results will come faster. Yeah. And the breakthroughs, so the results will be much more important. So we have started with an infrastructure project in 2013. We started the building of it. And what we have today, it is a research center. It's a research center that offers an ecosystem, an international ecosystem, where we have users that are coming from abroad to do experiments with a unique laser system that is operating in Romania. So it's really a relevant research infrastructure in Romania. And we are working, the groups doing research are mixed groups, so are groups of researchers from abroad that are working with groups from Romania. We are doing the experiments together. We are learning one from the other, and we can develop research, top-level research in Romania that will allow us afterwards to develop the small projects, the ones that we thought at the beginning, the ERC project. So having this infrastructure available here will allow researchers from Romania to apply for projects that can be performed here in Romania, or with the experience that they gain here with our infrastructure, they can go in other places around the world and do top-level research. But there is much more that it can be let's say, built or spoke about our infrastructure. So it is an interdisciplinary infrastructure. So we started with two communities. It was the community of nuclear physics and the community of laser physics that sit together. But then, while developing the infrastructure, they realized that they need engineering, a lot of engineering. They need life sciences because they want to develop applications. They need material science. So the center today can be seen as an interdisciplinary center where we can develop in research in many directions. And more than that, we also are preoccupied of educating the young generation of researchers. So we are offering the young researchers a career path. And we are starting from faculty, from university. So today we have in our facility more than 70 students. And there are different degrees of preparation. So we start from bachelor, we have master students, and we have PhD students. And moreover, we have a PhD school that was opened together with the Politehnica Bucharest. It is a school that is dedicated to the engineering and application of lasers and accelerators. And here, together, we are preparing the young generation for performing research at LIMP, and not only. It's research in the field of nuclear photonics that is the field that is pursued at LIMP. So, and this allowed us also to apply for projects. So we have a project together with the university from Technical University from Darmstadt in order to prepare the young generation of scientists. And so we have an opening, European opening for doing our research. So there is also one more point I would like to stress, because I think that this is important. And it's important not only for us, but it's important also for the funding agencies. We have always to find out the right balance between doing basic science as a source of knowledge and applied research that use the knowledge in order to solve major problems of societal benefit. And this is what we are doing at LIMP. So we are trying to perform a very high-level basic science. And I have one example that is very good. It is the medical application of the high-power laser. So we have a project in which we are trying to understand how the extreme light, the lasers, interact with matter in order to accelerate particles. And then we have the immediate application because we want to use these particles to develop treatment and diagnostic of the cancer. So basic science and applied science are going together. And this offer, I think, also for those who want to apply for ERC grants, a very big benefit. So thank you. I will stop here because there is a lot of things, other things to say, but I think that I should stop here.
Thank you as well. That's wonderful news, and we'll have some time for the Q&A. But now moving on to where the funding comes from. Professor Adrian Curaj, General Manager, I'm hoping you are going to tell us that you have received more money from the national budget to support researchers in Romania. I'm afraid you are not going to give us that answer, but hopefully you're going to tell us about the instruments that the National Funding Agency has to empower young researchers, but also mid-research careers researchers to apply for ERC grants to develop frontier research and be more successful and competitive in these types of competitions.
Thank you so much. I wish I could come with such a message, but I don't have it. Madam President Leptin, dear host, Rector Costoiu, and dear colleagues, Okay, I am the last one in the row, so I don't want to bore you, but I want to send a few messages. First, from the beginning, I want to say we must do more at the institutional level, at the funding agency level, at the national level. Second point, very tough for us, it's the volume of funds matters, but the predictability matters more. And we have here a big problem. And thank you for addressing this, Professor. Romania does not lack funding schemes. Funding schemes are well aligned with the pillars of the European Union. It's not about copying, it's about mirroring. And that's why we are able to collaborate and we are prepared to collaborate at the level of lead agency with many different funding agencies in Europe, but also we are collaborating well with overseas, and we have a strong, very clear, nice, beautiful agreement with National Science Foundation US running beautiful projects. Okay, saying this, I have 3 points to address, and I hope even the RPCs, all of them are addressing the ecosystem that help build the capacity to apply for ERC grants. It's just about ERC grants. And I will come with 2 examples. Team of young researchers projects. We have a funding scheme, nice, beautiful, but it is not just having it. We see the scheme as a possible pipeline for ERC starting grants. And it was meant for this. Second, we have a complex exploratory project funding mechanism, and we see the pipeline, this as a pipeline for consolidator level ambition for funding similar ERC projects. But for this, our evaluation mirrors the ERC evaluation. And in a way, we have the full international peer review, and also similar panels to ERC panels. So it's important because, in a way, ERC is not seen as a foreign language, but a familiar one. We are preparing our researchers to apply for. The second point I want to address is about accompanying our researchers, not only funding. I just want to say here something important for us. Since 2022, we have a full-time NCP. It's a very functional mechanism, and the results are obvious here. And you know, most of you already said, okay, we have people are coming, your colleagues are coming with answers to almost all our questions, and it is something very, very important. But also my colleagues from the NCP contact point pilot different things, mock interviews, also they apply for ERC mentoring initiative. We are waiting for the results of the evaluation. We use the ERC, we use the Norway funding mechanism for an ERC grant scheme. It was not successful for us, but anyhow we try to push a little bit our community to work with their colleagues from Norway for preparing the ERC proposals. So there are a lot of things, and I'm glad. But also, it is something really important for all of us, because in 2010, since 2010, at that time nobody talked about Seal of Excellence, but I remember we set up a Seal of Excellence-like mechanism. It is functional ever since then, and it covers 2 phases: support grant for B score in step 2, and it is let's say a reward for those researchers managing to have such a score, and it is 150,000 euros. But also we have an excellent grant scheme. If researchers got an A score in step 2, we are financing at the level of the original project proposed for the ERC, the same. And no any string attached, what means we do not evaluate again. Okay, we base on the ERC evaluation, and It's quite interesting because it's very easy and very fast, but of course we are waiting for those receiving grants from us to continue and challenge and apply again for ERC. It's not just, okay. And in addition to this, is something very interesting, and we piloted this since 2020. If an institution got an ERC grant, you said already, and it is about your experience in NEC and all the universities hosting ERC grants, we come with an institutional prize. 25% of the from the grant level. That means for a consolidated grant, 2.5 million euros, the price for the institution is 675,000 euros. For what? For being prepared and more attractive for the next applicants. It's not about doing, I don't know what kind of, there are no string attached. We don't ask to report what they are doing with money, just to prepare themselves to be a better host. So there are small things we do believe they are coming with big consequences. And third point, it's about retention, reconnections, and attracting scientists. And there are so many to say here, but it's important Romania has no any restriction related to the nationality of PA. It's important. All the applications are written in English, again. I told you about evaluation, it's important. But also there are different type of projects from different funding lines already. Some of our colleagues already told you about resilience program and those 100 research grants almost at the level of the starting ERC starting grants. And also the Center of Excellence, we just start funding for 5 years plus 2. Actually, we expect 7 years for this Center of Excellence. With a clear message, we are not investing in research infrastructure because Romania invested a lot in research infrastructure. 75 of the funds of the Center of Excellence are for the researchers, for young researchers, for well-established researchers, for researchers coming from all around the world. And last but not least, it's really important we have a nice, beautiful channel with Romanian diaspora. And ever since 2008, at every 2 years, we have a large conference where diaspora camps in Romania, working with Romanian scientists. 2025 in Cluj-Napoca, 1,300 Romanians were together, 1/3 coming from all around the globe, from all the continents, from 34 countries, different countries. They plan for new projects. They discuss about, even they discuss about coming back in Romania and using a vehicle like ERC is. So a lot of energy about this. We have also nice, beautiful stories about, some of them are already here in Romania, sharing very nice, beautiful projects. And I want to stop here because I already talked too much. But for me, it's important to be focused on the attractiveness. And if we talk about attractiveness, definitely for us it's important to support existing visible excellence. Even we have critical mass or just islands of excellence, okay, because it's quite complicated to talk in Romania about critical mass, but islands of excellence we have. Also, it's important for institutions to think twice because the research cultures, it's many times important for researchers to decide to choose a host. And last point, it's about predictability. It hurts us the most. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Adrian Curaj, and thank you to all our distinguished panelists. And we are a bit over the schedule, but I think we can still take several questions from the audience. It's the Q&A moment. And in case you also have questions addressed to Maria Siomos, because we didn't have the time for a Q&A at that point, We have her around and she can answer your questions if you didn't get to talk to her during the coffee break.
Mr. President, I will be very directly to you. For us, it is very important, of course, to increase the rate of success for ERC grants in our university and, of course, in Romania, generally speaking. And from what your colleague presented in the previous session, we saw that it is a big difference between the rate of success for Romanians who are in Romania and Romanians who are abroad. And I was wondering why. And my colleague from Romanian Academy says something about the shy of the Romanian. I think it's much more than the shy. It's in fact because the Romanians who are working here in Romania, they have a different environmental than the Romanians working abroad. And we are coming now to what happens here in Romania, and you know very well that Romania allocated the lowest budget for research in Europe. So this is a problem. We have to be very honest, and this is a big problem. On the other hand, what I want to ask you, do you consider that it's also possible in the frame of ERC grants in order to increase the rate of success for Eastern countries, like I said? Because I saw that you have some synergy grants in your portfolio. In the synergy grants, we may join the efforts of 2 or 4 principal investigators, and if you can encourage that one at least of this investigator should be from eastern part of Europe, for instance, like we are doing, like the European Commission did with widening program, because this is a problem really here for the Romanian younger teams, especially, that do not have enough ways to do collaboration and to make a penetration within already established networks at the level of Europe. So it is quite an important problem. We saw also this problem in our research report at the level of university. We are doing well in the number of papers, we are doing well in the number of researchers. But when we are seeing about the collaborations with other countries, the level is low. And in order to encourage this level of collaboration, because this means at the end internationalization, and internationalization would be a very important component of the research activity. So my question is very directly, and I'm very honest, if you can encourage a bit from your point with your available measures to encourage the Romanian guys to apply and to increase a bit the rate of success. Thank you.
So, first part of your question was not a question but a statement, and I fully subscribe for it. It is the environment. That is what we've said again and again. The environment has to be attractive for the best people, and then everything else follows. So I'm totally with you on that. Encouraging, yes, encourage, and the synergy grants are a good measure, are a good mechanism for that. And we have examples of collaborations between widening countries. In fact, ones where the leading researcher is in a widening country. I'm thinking of one in Slovenia, for example. There's also another type, and that is a hop-on, where if there is already a team and they want to take on an additional member, I think it's possible that HFSP has that. Or anyway, so saying that one of the members should be, or even must be, that has been rejected time and again. And it's been most vehemently rejected by the members on the Scientific Council who are from widening countries, because they are the ones who apparently most want to protect the excellence only, because they don't want anybody to be told, oh, you're just on there because you're from a widening country, or you just got the grant. It's so that's the colleagues in the Scientific Council who, when we've discussed any such measures, were strictly against that. But nevertheless, your researchers should be encouraged to engage in these. And, you know, many have done postdocs abroad, and there's nothing at all wrong running a synergy grant with your ex-postdoctoral advisor, who will still be, you know, at Harvard or wherever, because one member of a synergy grant can even be outside Europe, or maybe they're at the Pasteur Institute or wherever, and finding 2 or 3 others. It's a really good mechanism. And also you then have a critical mass of excellence already, even if you're junior, so a junior colleague can do that. So many, many ways. And I hope what the local community is trying to establish here in terms of advice will take that on as well. But for any kind of, also, you know, one has to understand we have to defend excellence only against all sorts of issues. For example, I'll speak very openly here, the Marie Curie Slorowska Association is very worried that the Commission is talking about what they call directionality. You know, Commission will say, well, it must be justified that we want to train young people in AI, so we'll give you extra money if you have a program only for AI. That sounds reasonable, but it is against a bottom-up approach. Next thing they'll say, well, you keep that money, but you know, we'll also say we want quantum. You take that out of your own. We are worried because next thing they say, well, MCSA is doing it. Why shouldn't the ERC do it? We'll give you extra money, and then suddenly. So it's the sort of, you know, fear of then having to give in to others. Once you have one exception from excellence only, that's the other thing that my colleagues from the widening country tell me, then they're scared that creates a precedent. But I do encourage everybody to look at synergy as an option.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Let's see if there are other questions from the audience, and please be very brief on it because we are already over time.
Hello, I am Alexandra Alina-Mihaela. I'm also a PhD student from University Politehnica of Bucharest. I'm working right now on the National Institute of Machinery, Agriculture and Food Industry. And I applied several times to Horizon 2020 in twinning. I received 1 seal of excellence. And I didn't know how to do after that, because our prize, your prize, Mr. Courage, are not public. I received the seal of excellence, and after that, I didn't know how to apply for national funding. So right now I'm 4th year that I am applying for twinning, and I hope this year will maybe have another seal of excellence, and maybe you can guide me to have some national funds to start this project and to move on.
May I come with an answer? It's not up to us. It was decided matching funds to be covered by the National Resilience Program or structural funds. So it was a decision taken. We don't have anything to say here.
This opportunity to start the project is not public. Seeking information on internet, I didn't receive it. I will contact you after that, maybe.
I totally understand, but it's not in our hands, and we have to accept there are different responsibilities for different bodies. It is not in our hands.
But seal of excellence must be public, because the European Union said, okay, your project has 30 points for 15, you receive seal of excellence, you have one little big step you don't achieve to the funding, and now I hear that we have an opportunity to start on UFCDE funds. I have a requirement to be more public about these grants and prices in order to stimulate the young teams to work on European projects. Okay, thank you.
We might have time for one last question if our panel members are still available to stay with us. So if there is one last question, but please be very concise and also focused on the ERC dimension of our talk and frontier research. Okay, then I think we can.
Researchers are shy. You are. I've never had so few questions.
I told you.
So with this last round of encouragements, maybe prospective candidates can dare. Okay, we have.
Well, not that shy. My name is Dr. Marghitu, working at the Institute of Space Science in Bucharest. And my question is short. Everything looks nice as soon as you have the virtuous circle started up. But I think the question in Romania is how to do this igniting step. Do you have any advice on the matter? Thank you.
Thank you. The igniting step, I think that's a good one. Well, I mean, for one thing, you have ERC grantees. So there is already a spark. And I have cited to some of the people at this table here the example from Czechia, where the grantees and former panel members, and you also have some of these here, have got together to advise, to encourage and advise potential applicants. And I think advice in both directions is important. It's important to coach those who have great ideas and just don't know how to turn them into a grant. But it's also important to discourage those who are not ready, because you don't want your young people or even the senior people to get frustrated. I know we used to, the ERC used to go out and say, apply, apply, apply. If your country isn't getting enough grants, get everybody to apply. Obviously, that's not a solution, because not everybody in any country is ready to apply for an ERC grant. It's a very, very, very small minority, also in the large and the rich countries. It's a small minority. So it's important for that to be known. Not everybody is ready. If you don't get it, it's not a shame. It's just an incentive to try again. And then get these groups, these grantees, panel members, other experienced people, your expats from other legislations. Very good. Diversity is great. We heard a question this morning, how do I know whether my grant idea is great? Your international community will know that. And then get them going. And that's an encouragement. Czechia came out with the highest success rate of all countries in our last consolidator count. Higher than Switzerland, UK, Netherlands, Germany, etc. I think you've got the spark here. You've got the ignition. Of course, you need, if you're an ICE, you need internal combustion engine, you need petrol, and the government can provide that.
Thank you. If somebody else in the meanwhile has decided to be bold and ask a really last question. Okay, please decide.
We are online. It's necessary also to online the microphone.
Yeah, okay. Yes, that's true. That's true.
Thank you very much. My question is, how important is this European dimension of the project? Can it be, is it necessary in some ways? Because I've seen many proposals that try to strive to cover several countries in order to be more European relevant at the European level. It's not.
No. Some people are given wrong advice. That's another recommendation. Do not go to agencies. Ask the panel members and the successful grantees. You don't do anything to sell your project by double guessing what somebody else wants. The panels are far too clever and experienced to have the wool pulled over their eyes. They will see whether your idea is great and whether you've shown that you have the capacity to do the project. So the only thing that works is absolute truth in your application, and convince them by the content, not by words. It doesn't help to say this is breakthrough, this has impact, this is a European dimension, this is innovative, and none of that stuff helps. The only thing that helps is the actual quality of the grant. Right, people who've been on here, panel members? And that is why it's excellence only.
Okay. Thank you so much. And on this final note, I would like to give the floor to our host to close today's event. And thank you so much to all of our panel members for all their insightful.
My question, if our panelists want to address a final word?
Thank you.
Yeah. It's not the final word, it's the word of our special guest, the President, but I'm very happy because we have this chance to talk with you, Mrs. President. It's very, very important, I'm sure, for our colleagues, for our professor, researcher, here in the room and online. I'm sure that the ecosystem is important, the place my colleague mentioned, and we need more, to encourage more people to entry in this special ecosystem and encourage the specialists. We are very, I start with this, we are very interested to continue this discussion, not only now. It's your first official visit in Romania. I'm sure it's not your last official visit in Romania. And we are very happy to invite you and visit not only our university, but visit also the infrastructure, visit the project, and understand what's happening in Romania. Thank you so much again. The last word is your words, please.
Well, I thank you again for hosting this session and the audience for being here. I hope you learned something. And I want to thank this panel. I mean, you really have got the people here who know how to do it. So just get on with it and do it. Good luck with that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you for a cocktail after this last session, and we continue the discussion with our president and our guests. Thank you.